countries, global and national inflation, as well as volatility in the oil market, the Monetary Policy Committee decided to hike the benchmark interest rate, though minimally for the sixth consecutive time, taking it from 17.5% to 18%.
MPC noted that while the continued rise in headline inflation remained a significant problem confronting the economy, other macroeconomic variables were moving in the right direction despite observed headwinds. The committee's debate at this meeting, therefore, was whether to continue its rate hike to further dampen the rising inflation trajectory, or hold to observe emerging development and allow for impact of the last 5 rate hikes to permeate the economy. Loosening in the view of the members would gravely undermine the gains so far achieved. Members thus resolved by a majority vote to raise the monetary policy rate MPR by 50 basis points.
The central bank governor Godwin Emefiele addressed pressing issues of the naira scarcity, which has continued despite approval from both the Supreme Court and the CBN to allow the old 1,500 and 200 naira notes to coexist alongside the new ones until December 31st, 2023.
Before the naira design, we said there was about 3.23 trillion naira in circulation, out of which only 500 billion naira was being held in the banking system, and 2.72 trillion was being held outside the banking system. And with the naira redesign, current, and it was published even in the newspaper yesterday, currency in circulation is roughly close to 1 trillion naira. And CBN continues to pump the newly designed currency into the market, but the truth is at some point we will need to reassess again.
Emefiele also spoke on steps being taken to address failures in e-transactions.
I must apologize, yes, online channels failed, but no doubt it was a result of the deluge of volume of online transactions that hit the banking industry. And I think it's currently being resolved, and we are following up on daily basis. Our payment system management department follows up on a consistent and daily basis with the bank to ensure that where there are downtime, they are resolved as quickly as possible.
The Apex Bank governor further stated that the e-naira now has 13 million wallets, which have carried out 22 billion naira worth of transactions. Chamun Dabeng, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right, let's now join Mukhtar Mohammed. He's a financial analyst for more insights on this. He joins us via Zoom from Lagos. Hello, Mukhtar. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, thank you for joining. I believe you watched that report with us. You heard the. Let me start by, getting your reaction on what the CBN governor said about 1 trillion naira now in circulation. The question that some Nigerians will be asking is, then where is it? Because it looks like we're still battling with the issue of the cash crunch.
Well, I think because we are not reading through the numbers, if you have 3.2 trillion in circulation just 3 months ago, and all of a sudden you have just little above 1 trillion in circulation. I think that answers your question, where we were battling with cash scarcity, because for an economy that has up to 3.2 trillion to be brought down to an economy of 1 trillion, your guess is as good as mine.
All right, Mukhtar, yesterday the CBN increased the interest hike from 17.5% to 18%. Now, the thing is this, the question is, between January and February, the inflation rate rose from 21.82% to 21.91%, about 0.09%. So a lot of people are asking, was that enough for this hike?
Well, I think the hike is a predetermined steps that have been taken by CBNs all over the world. So the variables are not improving, and they think the best way to get those variable improve rather, is to keep hiking rate until we get stability in the system. But again, we need to look at our own peculiar cases. That's what I keep saying. We cannot do things the way others are done, because in others' economy, they don't have the same microeconomic challenges that we have. Most of these economies are economies that their interest rate is less than their inflation, comparable to us, whereby we have an interest rate of 18%, inflation of 22%. So definitely, I think we need to look at it critically again and begin to think of an homegrown solution to an homegrown economic crisis, because our own challenge in terms of inflation has to do with three variables. I keep saying it. We have the microeconomy situation, which is not looking good. We also have the market demand inflation, which has to do with demand and supply, and the recent cash scarcity has not helped matter. And we also have inflation that is moved up because of supply chain. When we talk about supply chain, we're talking about the manufacturing sector, production inflation, whereby because of production, most of the variables that help in production of some of these goods has gone up, especially the energy costs. So definitely our own situations are different from theirs. But the CBN keep doing the same thing others do. Yes.
Mukhtar, the thing is this is about the sixth consecutive time they are hiking interest rates. And each of that time, all experts have said is that our case is different from that of Europe and America, and that we had a problem with supply. About 2 weeks ago, the Manufacturers Association said that due to the cash Naira redesign policy and the fact that there was no cash in circulation, they couldn't produce. Now you have mentioned that we need to do production to change this. So on the one hand, the same CBN has the Naira redesign policy, which reduced the amount of cash in circulation, which affected production, and the same CBN is hiking interest rate. What do you make of that?
It doesn't make sense. We've said it before, it doesn't make sense. Again, not only that the manufacturers are dealing with those solutions, those challenges, but they're also dealing with the challenges that have to deal with exchange rate volatility. There's no exchange rate, there's no FX in the system. And so most of them have to source for FX as high as $775, $750 to $730. Exchange rate for Naira to a dollar. And so that also has increased their production costs, and thereby they will have to direct it to the consumer. So definitely, I think we've said it over and over again, but I think the CBN is bent on doing what they feel they are doing based on what the data they have, that maybe we don't have those data. But if we are looking at common economic sense, what we are seeing is that the cost of borrowing keep getting high, and yet people are not even able to access this cash to even grow their business. The informal sector, which is the key driver of Nigerian economy as it stands now, is non-existent because of the cash shortage. We have seen an economy that has been drilled of over 22 trillion. That is the informal sector. So definitely, I don't see reasons. I expected the CBN to address the major challenge that we have in Nigeria as we stand now, is cash scarcity, and that scarcity have a negative impact on every area of our economy, and that is the reason why we keep having this inflationary figure going up. And instead of CBN to look at that and begin to think of a creative way of coming up with ideas, especially as regard liquidity in the system, what the CBN has done was confiscate people's cash. Is no more mopping up, it's confiscation of cash, because even what the CBN governor is saying is the same thing that we've been saying all this while, that it's not that we don't have the cash, they have refused to get enough cash into the physical cash into the system. And he has said it all, but again, we mustn't forget that this same CBN governor have not answered our question. What we were seeing again, if I'm looking at this, what the numbers he's giving, he told us before then that out of the 3.2 trillion that we have outside the banking space, we'll only be able to recover 2.7 trillion. So we're still waiting on how to recover the 500 billion. So what we are seeing now is that 500 billion that have not been recovered into the banking space is still lying there, is what the CBN is calculating to say we have about 1 trillion in the system. So definitely what we have we may be having less than 500 billion in the system.
Okay, now to what effect is this increase in interest rate? I mean, here we have a cash crunch problem, which clearly you've said it has affected virtually every other sector. So is there any likelihood of seeing an effect of this increase in the interest rate, given the fact that we still have this issue of the cash crunch?
Yeah, definitely, we are seeing that cost of borrowing has gone up. So what it means that the minimum amount you can borrow is 18%. So definitely, if you are borrowing at 18% minimum, I say minimum. So it depends on the bank you are using and depends on how much you want. So if you are borrowing at 18% minimum, then the effect will also be that you drive those costs, this hike, back to your consumer. That is one. Number two, the financial sector we might experience non-performing loans, especially if loans were given to the informal sector that seems now suffering. And that also is a big risk that the CBN is not looking at. So when we look at those two key indices, they are enough to drag down an economy and have a negative impact on them.
All right.
Okay.
Mukhtar,
okay, so, yeah, before Stella comes in here, is there any benefit at all since this migration that we have, I would say seeming migration, because we do not use much of the cash now. We have more people making transactions, e-transactions, making mobile transactions and the rest of them. Is there any benefit? Is there anything that we may have benefited from this system since the beginning of this policy, as it is?
Definitely. It's not all negative. You need to look at, we have more people opening accounts now in the bank, and that also is going to tame a lot of illicit funds that normally find their way into the economy. It also is going to reduce criminal activities, especially in the area of corruption, fight against corruption and insecurity also. Then we also look at the fact also that the economy itself is going to benefit from a cashless policy because we are able to control inflationary pressure because of the amounts that we know that are in circulation and wars that are done digitally. We must only forget that it also helped the bank bottom line because a lot of banks, their non-income non-bank, that is the non-interest income, will increase because of fees that are being paid by these transactions that are done online. And also the government will have more revenue. Remember, for every transaction you do, you pay value added tax. So those are the positive. And I'm happy that the CBN governor came out and said that he apologized to Nigeria because of the inability for them to do a lot of transactions digitally because of the volume, which we've spoken about. And I think that was where you were supposed to look at before coming up with this cashless policy, because you have about 20 million Nigerians doing cashless policy before, but now we have almost 80 to 100 million Nigerians involving cashless policy transaction within a space of between a day or two. So definitely the infrastructure is not able to carry it, and that's why we see the kind of challenge we see in this e-transaction. So definitely the positivity, like I said, are there, but again, the larger picture, it seems to be that negativity outweighs the positivity, because a certain particular part of the Nigerian economy, which drive in terms of employment. So when I talk about employment, we're talking about both self-employed and those that were employed are now to be in a state of in a very bad state.
All right, Mukhtar. What we see in Nigeria at the moment is that we keep increasing the interest rate to chase the inflation. So as the inflation goes up, they increase interest rate. And a lot of experts have said that it's a copy and paste approach by the CBN, copied from the West. Now, do you think that at some point, because this is the sixth time, at some point the CBN will come back to the drawing board to say, okay, it appears this is not working?
Well, definitely, I can assure you that by second quarter, they will definitely do that, because we can't say it's not working. It's working, but again, because of other challenges that they have refused to address, we are not seeing the benefits of those changes. Like the CBN governor said, there's a little bit upside in terms of variables. We've seen the slowdown in inflationary pressure in some sector. But again, we are not seeing the larger picture, because Nigeria expects a quantum reduction in inflationary pressure, but we are not seeing that. And basically, that is drawn by one process before, which has to do with the exchange rate volatility. As long as the CBN have refused to address that part of the market that has to do with FX supply, either to manufacturers, even to those that want to do small businesses, SMEs, or also to people that are involved in educational sector, you will definitely continue to see those challenges, because the CBN is shying away. If we are able to address the exchange rate volatility, that alone can bring inflation down by almost 5%. And that is what the CBN is not ready to look at, because they seem to have run out of idea on that side. Then again came the naira scarcity that also destroy the indigenous companies. Now, it's not, I'm talking about indigenous company, I'm talking about the informal sector, I'm talking about that woman that sell corn on the way, I'm talking about the lady that will be selling granite, I'm talking about people that deals on sachet water on the street. So all these are challenges that the CBN are supposed to be looking at and addressing. If they are able to address those challenges, then the natural cause in terms of economic terms is demand and supply comes to play. Naturally, when you get the variables right, there's slowdown in terms of inflationary pressure.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mukhtar Mohammed, a financial analyst. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak and sharing your perspectives with us.
My pleasure. Thank you and good morning.
All right. Okay, we'll now take a short breather, and then when we return, Daybreak will continue our discussions on the governorship and state assembly elections.